Well, when you get to the part of Route 66, it's been largely bypassed by Interstate 40 in San Bernardino County. Uh, Route 66 follows the railroad, and it's really interesting how the little names of the towns are in alphabetical order because that's the way the train water stops were designated. Starting at Amboy and moving to the east, unfortunately, but Amboy, Baghdad, Cadiz, Danby, Essex, Fenner, Goffs, Homer, they're all equidistant because that's where the train had to stop to take on water and coal. And Route
That's interesting.
66 followed that same alignment. And it's real interesting. Unfortunately, a lot of those little communities have been abandoned or a little bit bedraggled, but there was a time when they were, fantastic little pit stops for a traveler.
See, and to
Yeah.
me, this is interesting because up in my neck of the nape here in the Minnesota, North Dakota, you'll see a lot of towns, small towns named after female names,
Yeah.
and it's daughters of settlers or
Hmm.
wives and daughters, if you will. And I might be a little bit off on the mileage here, but they're generally, I think, I want to say 16 miles apart. And the reason for that was that the horse and buggy could go 8 miles, or was it? No, it was 16 miles and turn around and go 16 miles home in one day. They wanted
Hmm.
people to be able to bring the grain to the grain elevator. These towns had grain elevators. And so instead of water stops, there were grain elevators. But it had to do with that. And there's no, our culture is basically no different than it is today because when the internal combustion engine came, you're talking about every, what is it, every hour and a half, something like that.
Hmm.
And now with the EV charging stations, it's every 30 to 45 miles that the federal government is forcing these interstates to put in charging stations because they're not reliable enough to go a half hour, 45 minutes without having a charging station. Just talked to a gentleman the other day. I met him outside of Fergus Falls because he had to go charge up. He was driving an EV from Chicago, and it was 40% less than he anticipated because it was colder.
Yeah.
And, and that's, we joked about good thing there wasn't a 10% increase in the elevation, or it would have been 60% because any little bit of elevation in those EVs. And again, that's the challenges that we're up against. And